President Trump says the partial government shutdown could last months or more than a year, although he hopes negotiations will be fruitful in coming days. But the president also says he's considering declaring a national emergency in order to build his border wall with or without Congress. The statements come on the day the stock market surged on higher than expected jobs numbers for December, and the Federal Reserve chair saying he will be patient with interest rate hikes. We have Fox team coverage tonight. Doug McKelway is on Capitol Hill, where Democrats are firmly entrenched against the president's border wall. Correspondent Kevin Cork, though, starts us off tonight from the White House, where the president seems equally committed to his position. Good evening, Kevin.
Evening, Brett. Asked if he would consider those emergency powers to grant himself the authority to somehow fund the wall without congressional approval. The president said yes, he thought about it, and yes, he would do it if it came to that. Just the very latest twist in the ongoing debate about funding the wall and ending the partial government shutdown.
We can use them, absolutely. We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country, absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. But we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly.
President Trump today on the heels of a 2-hour meeting with Democrats here at the White House.
We just completed a lengthy and sometimes contentious conversation with the president.
We had a very, very productive meeting.
Two viewpoints of a very important meeting with a singular purpose: to end the partial government shutdown.
I'm not saying it was an easy meeting or even a kind meeting or a nice meeting, but in the end, I think we've come a long way. And we're going to be working very hard over the weekend.
It was the second such gathering this week of leaders from both parties in the Situation Room here at the White House. While neither side would share specifics about the conversations, the consensus was there's more work to be done.
The southern border is a dangerous, horrible disaster. We've done a great job, but you can't really do the kind of job we have to do unless you have a major, powerful barrier, and that's what we're going to have.
Our aim will be to find a solution, not just simply to end the government shutdown, to provide funding to end the crisis at our southern border, to achieve real border security, and to build a wall on our southern border.
The wall, the pillar of the president's promise to defend the border, and an absolute non-starter for Democrats, who vowed to stand pat until the president reopened the government.
We have a disagreement on the refusal of the president to open up the government.
But with the impasse now at 14 days and counting, the prospects of a quick solution seem considerably murky at best.
It's very hard to see how progress will be made unless they open up the government.
And I think I can speak for Republicans in the House and Republicans in the Senate. They feel very strongly about having a safe country, having a border that makes sense. Without borders, I've said it many times, we don't have a country. I hope it doesn't go on even beyond a few more days.
And the meetings, Brett, continued tomorrow, both at 11 and 1 o'clock, including the Vice President, Mike Pence, as they try to end the impasse. Another very quick note, senior administration officials, Brett, are set to receive $10,000 annual raises beginning tomorrow. And while today the Vice President said he would turn down his raise, the President said he would consider asking other senior officials to follow suit. Brett?
Kevin, the president threatened to declare a national emergency to build the wall. So can he actually do that?
Well, listen, most people say no, he can't do that, Brett, but I think a better answer is it depends, because while legally he cannot, without congressional approval, say take money from one pot in the federal budget and move it to another to build a wall, other legal scholars always warn us about the broad nature of the president's powers under a national emergency. Either way, if he attempted to do so, it is a certainty that he would face a legal challenge from lawmakers and others.
Kevin Cork, live on the North Lawn. Kevin, thank you.
The government shutdown has hit its 2-week mark, and while the president says he had a successful meeting with Democrats today, and they kind of hinted at that, the Democrats as well, he also warned the end could be a while away. Take a listen.
The shutdown could go on for months or even a year or longer. Did you say that? And
I did.
Is that your assessment of where we are?
Absolutely, I said that. I don't think it will, but I am prepared.
Wow. Christina Partsinevelos has been following the shutdown wrangling inside the Beltway. She joins us now. That's incredible. The president not only owning the shutdown, but suggesting it could go a year more?
Yeah, and it's funny because I saw some of the viewers already responding to previous reports saying, hey, it's no big deal. It's only a partial shutdown. But yes, it is a big deal because it's affecting over 800,000 people and all the tourists, too, that come to Washington. But the latest argument that's going on right now, or debate, is whether the president can declare a national emergency in order to fund this wall. The issue with that is that they are looking at the funding that's within the Department of Homeland Security. Can they take that money and reallocate it to a wall? If it is a transfer, it's unconstitutional because you need the House and the Senate appropriation committees to say yes to it. But if they find money within the military construction budget, there could be an avenue for them to build the wall. So that whole area is very murky at the moment. Nonetheless, lawmakers here on Capitol Hill are obviously working hard to overcoming this shutdown impasse. Earlier today, you had House Speaker Nancy Pelosi speak, saying that yes, she is willing to negotiate, but she needs to open up government first. Listen in.
We recognize on the Democratic side that we really cannot resolve this until we open up government, and we made that very clear to the president.
So you have Nancy Pelosi saying open to border security, but then you have Republican Kevin Brady saying that in order to have open security, you need a wall. Listen in.
I know the Democrats are hung up on calling it a wall, but I don't care if they call it a gender-neutral palisade or a linear monument to climate change. In truth, we need more resources for border security.
And Congress is set to adjourn only on Tuesday, which means the government shutdown, partial shutdown, could continue all the way until Wednesday, which would make it 18 days. Pretty much the second longest if we're talking about partial shutdowns.
Christina, Liz Peek, it seems like there is a group that's going to be meeting over the weekend.
Right. Yes.
And no one's really talking very much about that. But tell us about the people who are in that room. I know it's Kushner and who else from the White House?
You have, there's a huge list of them, and I'm sorry I don't have all the names because I'm focusing more on the lawmakers here, but the problem is we're not getting a lot of details from who is a part of this working group. They're set to meet on Saturday. There's, not everybody is involved. I know Chuck Schumer hasn't been giving any details as to what this working group really means, and that's the confusing part, so I don't have all the details for you.
Second question for you. In the press conference, it came up, somebody finally said, is DACA on the table as a sort of not a bargaining chip, but as something that could also be resolved. And the president didn't seem to want to go there. What's your sense from what you're hearing about whether or not that's part of the conversation?
Yeah, very, very good point. It is, of course, a part of the conversation according to Democrats here, especially if you're considering Nancy Pelosi because she's getting a lot of airtime right now. She has said adamantly, just over the past 24 hours, I've been listening to all her interviews. She's been walking around here doing 60 Minutes and CBS and all that other stuff, saying that no money will go to this wall. However, the talk of DACA does come up quite a bit. What are you going to do about all of these immigrants that are in the United States already? And it seems like that could be a bargaining chip, but it's still too soon to say because she's been so adamant about not even a dollar going to the wall.
One of the biggest issues I have with this partial shutdown is it is actually impeding the free markets. We actually have learned that the SEC is going to furlough workers who are going to be having registration statements go effective for a lot of IPOs, technology companies. And so I'm actually curious to see if Gary B. thinks this is going to impact the market and could take a toll on some potential returns going forward, given the fact that we're not going to have capital markets flowing.
I tell you what, Kevin, I was not aware of that, so that's a good find on that SEC stuff. Will it affect the markets? I don't think so. I mean, even those the SEC being involved, I think it's such a small part of business growth these days. I mean, at the margins, yeah, but you know what? I think people are kind of inoculated to a government shutdown right now. I'll flip it over to Christina. What is the mood in Washington? Is there a sense of urgency, or is there a sense on both sides that, well, we're just going to wait it out and see what the other side, if the other side cracks?
Okay, that's a very good question because I thought about it this morning. I live in New York City and I'm obviously in D.C. right now, and I have to say the city is incredibly clean still to this moment. You have tourists that are upset that can't go to museums. However, I went to the museum today and it was packed because everybody's gone there. It's the only museum that's open because you have to pay to get in. The mood here seems to be that, people are still going about their days. If they're not a federal worker, it's not really affecting them just yet. There's a lot of talk about how it can affect various departments. Think of the travel department. Think even going to the airport. You can't get e-verified anymore. You're going to start to see the morale of a lot of employees go lower because they're being forced to work without pay. And I know everybody brings up the national parks and the toilets that have been blocked and all that, but it's going to start to affect the morale, not only here, but a lot of government workers across the country. And I don't think we can discount that.
Hey, can anyone explain to me, why are Democrats so dug in on this issue? I get why the president is dug in. He had them cheering, he had the crowd cheering, build the wall, and you can tell them, say, you're blue in the face, Mr. President, most people who are here illegally, they flew in on tourist visas and overstayed their welcome. A wall isn't going to fix our problems. Doesn't matter. He had the crowds cheering. He wants the wall. So I get that. But for Democrats, they haven't really voiced any moral objection to the wall. They just view it as squanderous. If it's squanderous and it's $5 billion, which is relatively small in the scheme of the U.S. budget, why are they so dug in that they can't find room to compromise for something they want?
That's a good question.
I think it's actually pretty interesting because this is par for the course for the Democrats. Do you remember, I mean, not a single Democrat voted for the tax cuts that went through that made American businesses competitive on a global scale. We had one of the highest tax rates in the world. It was cheaper for foreign companies to invest in the United States than American companies to invest in the United States. So, Jack, I don't understand why you're surprised or trying to figure out where the Democrats are coming from. This is just political bluster from them.
Well, one of the things that is happening, frankly, to the Democrats is they're having to deal with reality. The reality is that there was a sheriff in California who was just shot by an illegal immigrant. The reality is that there are terrorists that are coming across the border. I know, Jack, you want to believe people fly in, but there are a lot of people that walk over the border, and they need to be stopped. I think they are hearing from their constituents. Now, on the other hand, and Christina, I wonder if you sense any movement from Democrats at all. Some people are saying if Nancy Pelosi gives an inch to the president on this, she's going to get hit back hard by the left wing of their party. Is that changing at all?
No, it's not changing, and she will get hit back hard because they've been so vocal about it. But just to Kevin's point about why are they making, there's no moral argument. If you think of how the party as a whole, the Democratic Party as a whole, is trying to place themselves as being more fiscally responsible because there's been so many complaints thus far of the GOP spending so much. So I feel like it's a shift almost in party morality that you have the Dems right now saying, hey, we're going to be more fiscally responsible. Hence the fact that the Democrats are trying to put this pay-as-you-go, pay-go program where for every bit of spending you have to have the opposite effect in terms of cuts or anything like that. So I feel like that is the Democratic Party showing, hey, look, we can be fiscally responsible as well, maybe even more so than the Republicans.